stronger. Rebecca this is Dan Silverman. I'm the town moderator. I'm not normally the host for this event, but in order to get it going, I will be glad to host it. I would ask that I guess people who want to speak would use the raise the hand button, which you can find at the bottom of your screen if you look under reactions. But I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dick Elkin, who actually is the one who should be running this meeting. I'm not clear on exactly what he wants to do for a format. So Dick, the meeting is yours. I'll do what I can to help facilitate it. Dick, are you there? Well, given that it was a little bit of time getting this started, for those of you, I think there was a misunderstanding. I don't think Rebecca's on vacation. I guess it wasn't. The coordination wasn't clear as to who was supposed to get the meeting set up. So, Dick Elkin, are you on the call now or on the meeting? All right.
I see his picture there.
Yeah, I see his picture too. If not, let me just start. I'm running unopposed, and Dick was going to give me a couple of minutes at the beginning. Since I am running opposed, I'm going to use this as a bully pulpit just to talk briefly. Remind everyone that town meeting begins on this coming Saturday. The meeting starts at 10 a.m. Registration and check-in. Ira, could you please mute your call? We all love klezmer, but
No.
Ira, mute your call, please. Thank you.
Should I go get my horn?
You know what? I think I'm gonna maybe mute everybody just to make sure that we can hear what's going on. I'm not sure if I know how to do that. I may not be able to do that. So, any case, I was just going to say the meeting begins at 10 o'clock. Check-in begins at 9 o'clock. The quorum for this meeting is going to be 182, so that we do need people to check in. If people can get there early and check in early, we can get going right on time. There's a lot of business to conduct, and I would love to try to get this meeting done in one day. I don't think there's anybody that really wants to come back on Sunday. I'm going to ask everybody to be patient and as succinct as possible during the meeting. I would recommend that if you haven't already, that you go take a look at the guidance that's posted on the town website, just to sort of know what the ground rules are for check-in and seating and so forth. Dick, I see that you're on the call now. Rebecca made me the host, but I'm going to ask you if you would run the meeting, and I'll turn it over to you at this point. You need to unmute yourself. Dick, you're still muted, so we're not hearing any of that.
Okay.
There you go.
Dick, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Did you make the announcement? Because that was the first thing I was going to do about town meeting.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Hold on. Okay, we have two offices for which there are candidates. The first is the select board, and the second is the cemetery commissioners. So I'd like to do them in the order in which they appear on the ballot, which is the select board. There are three candidates. The ground rules would be, unless anyone objects, that first we'd ask each of the candidates to briefly introduce themselves and make a statement, taking no more than 5 minutes each. And after all three candidates have spoken, we'll go into questions, and you can pose a question either by writing it down in the chat or by raising your hand. To raise your hand, you go to the reactions button on the bottom of your screen and click on raise hand. At least on a PC it's there. And older versions, it was under the participants tab. So with that, we'll begin with the selectmen's race, and I'll ask Helen Wilson, who is on the ballot as the only candidate listed to start off with a 5-minute presentation, introducing herself and making any position statement that she would like. Helen, please.
Can you hear me? Jenny Parker, I'm sorry, this is not my 5 minutes. Jenny Parker just chatted that people are still waiting to get in.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I looked at who's here and a lot.
Danny, you're the host, so you will let people in?
Yes, I just disabled the waiting room, so people should be able to sign themselves in at this point.
We know that Lydia and Jeff have been trying to get in and several other people. I don't know how you guys got in.
I didn't realize the waiting room was enabled. I think people should, if people try again now, people should be able to get in.
Okay.
Can I start talking?
Yes, please.
Okay, I looked at who's here and most of you know that I've been doing town service for 22 years and I've been on various regulatory boards. I have a great appetite for acting on land use issues, and really almost everything the government does is about land use. I particularly like working on the select board because we are, in fact, 3 different things. We're the licensing board. We're the select board, which has a certain number of things that we do, use of town property. We make a lot of appointments. In some cases, regular staff, and in some cases, people on boards and committees. And we're the Shellfish Regulatory Board for the town, which is it is a completely separate in terms of the regulations that get applied and the state law that gets applied from the other 2 tasks. And after being on the Shellfish Advisory Committee for 9 years, that is really the thing that I have the greatest appetite for. You notice I'm not saying I know everything, I'm just giving you some sense of the length of my experience. I also find it uplifting to try to contribute to good process and good government, which really comes down to 1 vote at a time on any board or committee. In any agenda at any meeting, there's a series of decisions or agenda items where you do input, and doing my best to do that as well as I can. And I fall short, I make mistakes, is something that I've gotten better and better at, and I still like doing it. That said, if I get reelected, I look forward to working with whoever the town gives me to work with, which is always the story with me. And if I don't get reelected, I'll probably, think about it and try to be useful in some other way. But that's about it. I would say more if there were more unknown people. I don't assume that people know everything about me, but I don't want to take up time that could be used for people asking questions. I did grow up here. My parents lived here year round. Anyway, thank you.
You're muted, Dick.
Just to reiterate for people who might have come in late, we'll get a brief 5-minute statement from each candidate, and then we will take questions, which you can either raise your hand or write in the chat. And with that, Justina, can you?
Recording in progress.
Okay. Justina, can you go next?
Yes, thank you, Dick. I am on the select board now, and I'm re-upping for another 3 terms if you vote for me as a write-in candidate. And I'm going to introduce myself a little bit personally, as well as what I stand for. my family moved here in 1970 from Orleans when I was 14. My father was a fisherman, kind of a counterculture guy, and my mother was a school teacher, and my family bought a house. The town was very different in 1970. It was poorer, but you could buy a house. And ordinary people like my family could buy a house. And I think that, you know, my parents were college educated, but we were a family that struggled economically. And I think that gives me my roots. It gives me a passion for sticking up for our community. And I'm proud of the select board because we're very progressive. That means we are pretty fierce in sticking up for our community, even as our community changes now. It's one reason I'm proud of the select board we have right now. And it's one reason I think that continuity on the board right now is important. And I think it's one reason why I'm running, to keep that continuity. And it's one reason I'm asking you to vote for me for a second term. Another reason I'm asking you to vote for me and why I stepped up for a second term is that town staff asked me, and the town staff's been through a lot. It's something people don't really think of, but we've been through a lot of change. We've been through 2 town administrators recently and COVID. Town staff really stepped up to keep the town together. And we really do have a terrific town staff. And we need to find a new town administrator. And I think it's best that the select board we have is kept together. We're a really good team. And I really didn't want to lead the, excuse me, let the team down. Not the town staff and not the current board of selectmen who works really hard. I didn't want to ride off into the sunset and say bye to the select board, to the staff, and to the town. I don't think it's in the town's best interest right now to elect a newbie. There's lots of uncontested select board elections. There's another election next year. I think right now we need to keep the team together and to elect someone to elect the board we have. There's a lot of work. We've been working overtime on the board, and there's a ton more work to do. And it's simply easier to get the work done if you've already put in 3 years. And I should know, because when I look 3 years ago, when I joined the board, and it's like I look at a different person, a little more arrogant, a little louder, a little more sure of myself, you know, a little bit more like, oh, look at me, my ideas are great. Now I'm more of a team player. I think we should keep the team together, the Board of Selectmen team we have. So that's a little bit of why I'm running. Another reason I'm running is I was lucky to go to Harvard on a scholarship. Anyone that goes to Harvard has a bit of a free ride, not total, but a lot's paid for by donors. And I do feel a commitment to giving back. You have to feel that commitment because the Board of Selectmen is a lot of work and a lot of it's not fun. And it's what I know how to do, is paperwork and sit through meetings and digest volumes of information and be competent at it. And I don't know how to drive a truck and rescue people in a snowstorm like my partner, Lee Clark of Motown. I don't know how to fix things with my hands and tools. There's a lot of things I don't know how to do, but because of my Ivy League education, I do know how to deal with paperwork and meetings, and that's how I give back. I can also call oysters and cook. So my platform, one of the parts of my platform is hard work. I've missed 3 meetings in 3 years. I work hard for the town. It's part of my character. And you need someone who works hard. another part of my platform is I am very well informed on wastewater issues because I sat on the Water Commission for 8 years and I gradually learned a lot about it. I'm committed to
30 more
affordable
seconds.
housing. Affordable housing, I know a bit about the intersection of affordable housing and business, and there's other issues I'm passionate about. But really, I think you should elect me because I've sat on the board for 3 years and prepared to re-up and work very hard.
Okay, Justina, 30 more seconds.
That was it, Dick.
That was
And
it.
thank you for
Okay.
listening to me.
Oh, thank you. Okay, John Wolf, you're also a write-in candidate. Could you introduce yourself and tell us your positions for 5 minutes if you can?
Certainly. A little background
Sure.
first. I've been a full-time resident of Wellfleet for going on 12 years now. My family goes back here as property owners to the 1950s, as visitors to the 1930s, when my mother came up in tow with her mother, who was studying voice with a local classical singer. And I had a long-time dream of living in Wellfleet, which I fell in love with as a child. And in my later years, before I moved here, geared everything toward that. I am a tradesperson. I've been involved in the mechanical trades. Many of you know me also as a musician. I've been in both fields now for going on 50 years. I don't know if being in the mechanical trades says much about the prospects of success in the musical world, but I think I've enjoyed a fair measure of success in that, and I've been a successful businessman in the mechanical trades. I service restaurant equipment up and down the Outer Cape, oil burner service, marine engine work, and that sort of thing. And I'm still at it as I push 70. I still put in more than a full day's work. It's not uncommon for me to get 5 hours sleep a night. So I'm not unfamiliar with hard work. I've been, in terms of service to the town, I've been on the Marina Advisory Committee now for 6 years. I should point out also that I've operated a sailboat charter business here since I moved here. Postcard Harbor Tours is entering into its, I guess it would be its 12th season. Assuming I get my boat in the water in the next few days and take advantage of our burgeoning tourist season this summer. I have been very concerned about what I have seen going on in town in terms of ongoing problems, such as what we're all familiar with as our town finances have come under sharp review. These are not new problems. These go back not just to the present select board, but to previous ones. And I believe that fresh eyes are a good idea. I have certain concerns regarding initiatives that the town is undertaking, initiatives that I have a lot to learn about. No one person can possibly know everything about all the issues facing Wellfleet or any other town. I have, for instance, been working overtime to get up to speed on some of the details in the background of the Herring River Restoration Project. I have, of course, ongoing connections with the Harbor Dredging Project, which I joined the Marina Advisory Committee in the beginning of. And during my course of work with them, established a relationship with our congressional delegation in the form of Congressman Keating, with whom I met several times in our search for funding, which, as we know now, has successfully resulted in phase 1 of our dredging having been completed. I have concerns with how some of our town departments are operated. I'm speaking in terms particularly of the DPW. All of these require attention from our select board that I think has not always been present and accounted for. I think it is time for new eyes to be put on the board. Otherwise, I wouldn't be stepping up. I have plenty to keep me busy. So it's not like I'm lacking for things to do. It took quite an effort of faith for me to even consider stepping up to the board, up to the plate to run for select board. And having done so, yes, I sometimes question myself if I'm doing the right thing. I believe I am. I believe I would bring energy, insight, sharp eyes, and more important than anything else, questions. I'm a firm believer in the fact that the only stupid question is the one that doesn't get asked. And I have lots of questions. And
30 seconds, please, John.
okay, and as any number of people around town can attest, I have been out and around asking those questions. Having said that, I look forward to answering more questions if I can. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we'll take questions for any of the candidates, any or all of the candidates. And you can either pose them by typing them in the chat or by raising your hand using the reactions at the bottom of the screen and put the raise hand function in. And I will call on you or have Jeff Tash read the question from the chat. But okay, are there any questions now for the candidates? Jeff, do you want to start?
Sure.
First question from the chat.
We have a question from Lynn Algier, and it's would like to know whose idea it was to take our kayak spots away from us and go lottery next year. We have waited years for these spots. Who decided to take them away from us? Anybody want to answer?
I'll answer since nobody else is. I'm not a candidate, but it's not up to the select board to do that. It's up to the beach director.
Hi, I have my hand up. It's Helen.
Helen, please.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak unless somebody recognizes me, if you don't mind. Janet's right, and I don't have to say that again, but it was run by the select board, the controversy about it, and I can't remember which meeting, but kayaks are always a complicated issue because very often it involves the resource that's under the jurisdiction of the CONSCOM. So yeah, Janet was right, but we heard about it. Thank you.
Okay, since I can't lower your hand, you'll have to do it for yourself. Thank you. Are there any other questions in chat? Does anyone raise their hand at all? No questions?
God.
Dan, go right ahead. Dan?
Yes, I had to unmute myself. Well, somebody's got to get the ball rolling, and normally I don't. I respect the separation of powers between the select board and the town meeting and so forth, and I'm theoretically the head of town meeting. But having watched the select board over the past couple of years, it seems to me that the meetings have gotten inordinately long. And part of why I think they're so long, and this is my personal opinion, is that I think the select board are spending a lot of time on matters that could be delegated to for example, a licensing authority, and they're not spending a lot of time on some of the big picture and policy items. So I would ask each of the candidates, if you're elected, how would you help move the select board away from micromanaging some of the things that are going on in town and more toward the role that's envisioned by the charter, which is policymaking, big picture, long range planning? That's my question. Thank you.
Why don't we let each of the candidates respond to that for a minute and a half? I'll
Um,
begin with Helen.
Yeah, okay, so I'm finishing up my 9th year on the select board and sat through a whole lot of meetings when I wasn't on it. And Danny, respectfully, yes, the select board does have a bunch of policies which they draft and pass around and then approve or not. But our main task is really, in my opinion, the appointments we make, which have everything to do with the quality of land use decisions and other decisions in the town, whether for committees, boards, commissions. We sign contracts, we oversee that, even with the water commissioners. If there's a contract that the water commissioners have developed and made decisions about, it comes to us finally. And Danny, micromanaging, if you're on the licensing board, you're on the licensing board, you're not micromanaging. And like I said, we're 3 things. And we're supposed to be attentive to and conscious of things and make decisions based on the various regulations and laws that we're supposed to be acting under. And if you read through the select board's policies, applying them. But from my experience, the day-to-day thing in the meetings is what I just described. It's one agenda item at a time, one agenda item at a time, and trying to do all the homework and make the good decisions within that space of time in a meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Justina, would you care to answer that?
Yes, I would. I think there's a short answer, which I would join in with other select board members and having some workshops on tightening up with Robert's Rules of Order. We're a talkative select board, there's no doubt about it. But I think we are a policy board. We've done dredging, Hilda, Lawrence Road, split residential tax, transfer tax. We've got some innovative wastewater articles on the warrant. Let us not forget, this is a select board that led the town through 2 TA turnovers and COVID. So this is a select board that is a policy board. It's a magnificent board, and it's done the work of, in the absence of TAs, of some fairly high paid executive work because we haven't had the staff. And I'd like to turn quickly to something John Wolf said. He says he'd like to bring questions. He has a lot of them, but he was not at the select board meeting when we had the auditors in. And I know John has a lot of criticisms about how this board has handled the financial issues facing the town, but he wasn't there to answer the questions. He wasn't at the meeting, and this board has moved swiftly to handle that crisis, which I'll be going over again. So it's easy to say you'll do things, but it's harder to show up and do them.
Okay, thank you, Justina. John, you're on for an answer.
Yes, to answer the concerns that Justina just expressed. First of all, select board meetings for people that are not on the select board are not forums for them to answer questions. In terms of my criticisms regarding the select board's handling of financial issues that have been haunting us for some time, we keep hearing that a lot of this is due to personnel changes, that it's due to the fact that we changed accounting software. COVID has been mentioned as a factor. I have right here in front of me the 2020 management letter, which is just a page after page of issues that did not appear there for the first time, of procedures that are not being followed, that accounting processes that leave a lot to be desired, that haven't been addressed over a period of time. Now, companies and corporations and municipalities routinely experience personnel changes. People retire, people die, people get fired, whatever it may be. Software programs are changed, and somehow they manage to do this without the wheels coming off. So the fact that I was not at that select board meeting, that I instead chose to watch the video of it afterwards due to my work commitments, as I pointed out, I am not currently on the select board. So I do have work commitments that have to take precedence under those
Okay.
circumstances.
Thank you, John. We'll try
We
to
do have a
keep-
couple of questions.
Yes, Jeff, would you read them?
We have
Yeah.
a question from Jan Morrissey, it's directed to Mr. Wolf. Does he support the 95 Lawrence Road project?
Absolutely.
Okay, we have a question. I'm not FAHQ $. Do any of the candidates think any of the town department heads need to be replaced, or are they all doing a good job during their tenures?
Okay, let's begin with Helen again.
You know, I have to confess, let Justina go because I was guilty. I'm guilty. I was reading other questions. Forgive me. Which
Okay,
question was that?
This was the question about whether or not any of the department heads need to be
yeah.
replaced, or if they're all
Okay.
doing a good job.
Okay, so we have different department heads. We have, let's see. We have 3 that are relatively recent and all seem to be doing very well as far as I can tell. And I do pay attention. I'm particularly aware of the way in which the Shellfish Department functions, but also the DPW. And also, I'm trying to think of any more recent hires. The accounting office is not exactly a department, but to touch on something that John Wolf said, you understand, since Dan Hort was our previous town administrator before Maria Broadbent, and during his reign, we got a new town accountant, and we've had 2 since then, and now we have a 4th who stepped in to help us untangle and take care of the situation we're in. And it isn't just any one thing that's made the financial situation what it is. But no matter how good any of those accountants in that department were or were not, the transition is always difficult. So I can't think of any department head off the top of my head who should be replaced. We just got a new harbor master. We got a relatively new shellfish constable. Select board reappointed her for another 3 years after a very good 3 years with her. And Jane Norton has just become the director of the DPW because of the passing of Mark Vincent.
Thank you, Helen.
You know, police chief and fire chief seem fine to me. Thank you.
Okay, Justina.
Yes. And again, quickly, John, you could have asked questions of the auditor. Moving right along. No, first of all, the charter does not empower the select board to get involved in the management of department heads. That is up to the TA because that's the structure of the organization chart of the town. I think the more relevant question ahead of the Board of Selectmen, and why I think it's important to re-elect the experienced Board of Selectmen, is an incredibly important decision facing the town, is the recruitment of a very strong TA to run the town. We have really suffered from turnover at the TA level. And when we recruit and retain a strong TA, decisions such as this question, do any of the department heads need replacing, which my personal view would be no, that would be up to the new TA by charter. This town has suffered from turnover at the TA level. And yes, despite what John says, this really is 50%. This is really at the, this is, if you would listen to the auditors, this is part of our accounting snafus that we have in that department, which I'll touch upon again later.
Thank you, Justina. John?
Yes, I recognize the fact that the select board does not oversee directly the department heads. That's the job, as Justina pointed out, of the TA. However, when the TA is not doing that job appropriately, it is the select board's ultimate responsibility to address that with the TA. And in terms of the selection process of the TA, I have some serious concerns there, particularly with the selection of our last town administrator, who, despite the fact that she was apparently not accepted by Provincetown and that she came from Maryland and had little or no experience with Massachusetts municipal law, and particularly with the town meeting select board system of government, was selected over someone from Massachusetts who did have that experience. So we've been through 2 TAs in a relatively short space of time. Ultimately, that responsibility rests with the select board and with the selection process that the select board uses.
Thank you. Sharon, would you like to ask a question? Your hand's been up for a while.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I would like to know specifically from John and Justina. I think I have pretty good experience working with Helen on this issue, but I'd like to know from John and Justina how specifically, as select board members, they would propose dealing with our housing crisis, both for year-round housing and for seasonal workers.
Okay, let's begin with Justina, please. A minute and a half.
Well, the first quick answer is that I'm one of a 5-member team, and I'm proud of this select board in fast tracking Lawrence Road, and I would continue to be one of a 5-member team that strongly supports affordable housing. It's a team effort. There's a lot of good boards in town that deserve support. The second one is more personal. I have a background as a businesswoman and as an entrepreneur, a 20-year background, and I work with Cape Cod Community Bank and have been quietly exploring some ways that the bank might develop some mechanisms for financing. And I hope to make that an initiative that I could work on this next 3 years, because housing is, among other things, financing. It's one of many things, but real estate has a financing component. For example, many families are in a position to help with the down payment, but not all families, so that advantages some families. So I'd like to take a look at creative financing that might have a private sector component. So that is one way that I hope to draw upon some of my business background and hope to make a modest contribution in that area. Beyond that, I hope to strongly support the efforts of the many good boards and committees in this town.
Thank you, Justina. Sharon, your hand is still raised.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. John, would you answer this question?
Yes. First of all, this is certainly an area where Justina and I would find ourselves in agreement, as I think the Lawrence Road project is something the select board can certainly be proud of. In a number of respects, including the innovative approach to handling the wastewater issue. And it would be nice to see more of that going forward in the future. I think one of the obstacles we face is of a legal nature. You know, we have some projects in the works that have been stalled by litigation. You know, based really on, I hate to put it this way, but NIMBYism. You know, some people that don't want this affordable housing in their own backyards. And we're too small a town to be able to afford that, because the town itself is not that big of a backyard. So there I have to raise questions about, and I'm eager to hear some answers, because I don't know the answers to the question as to the effectiveness of our town council in dealing with these lawsuits. I know that there is another project, the Payne project, that has been dragging along for a long time now due to exactly this reason. So yes, I think that's something that needs to be addressed. Town council is another issue. How effective are they? We have not let that contract out for bid for a long, long time. And I think that's another issue that needs to be addressed.
Thank you,
That
John.
has bearing on housing.
Jeff, do you have some questions from
Yes,
chat?
we have a
line?
question was submitted by Ira Wood, and Ira says that on page 60 of the town warrant, it says that the operating and capital budgets together are rising from $23 million to $28 million. The amount of new debt exclusions is $3.1 million. The select board is responsible for sound fiscal management. Is this sharp rise, quote, responsible?
Okay, let's begin with Helen.
Yeah, guess what? The budget is a moving target. Last night at our Tuesday meeting, our interim town administrator presented some amendments to the budget. Because, long story short, as he said, this process, which normally takes 4 or 5 months, has been done in 4 or 5 weeks. And there are a number of transfers and things taken off now that are not in the warrant. So to answer Ira's question, yes, the select board is responsible for sound fiscal management, but given the pandemic and given whatever the reasons for the terrible hot mess train wreck we have found ourselves in over the last months, late spring, early summer, it's even going to be different by the time we get to town meeting. And this is not something anybody is happy about, but it is being addressed so vigorously right now with the setup that Charles Sumner has brought in. And as far as I can make out, it's effective. So the select board is responsible, but we're also having to have it worked on beyond what was printed in the warrant. And tomorrow at the FinCon, which Ira Wood is on, the Finance Committee, Charles Sumner is going to let you know what we found out last night, and there may even be some changes. So it's a moving target. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Justina?
I don't have the warrant in front of me. I already can't remember the page number. I already can't remember exactly the question. It's not printed in front of me. And I learned long ago in business not to address financial information verbally on the fly like that, because it always gets me into hot water. But thank you, Ira, for the question. And you're probably better at numbers and on the fly than me with all your finance background. But I can say that the select board moved swiftly and effectively. When we learned of problems with the audit letter to install, Charlie Sumner, with 30 years of experience, who's taking responsibility as a TA and he is accountable to the budget. And I'll be happy, Ira, if you'd like me to email you the answer later on tonight, when I can sit down with the calculator and look at the printed paper in front of me, but I don't do numbers verbally from my head on the fly. I have too much respect for numbers and money.
Thank you, Justina. John?
I can only say that the budget situation we find ourselves in now, the select board, I think, is doing the best it can with what it has in terms of, the chickens coming home to roost, as it were, with these financial issues. Thank God that Charlie Sumner is working with us. Is this a responsible budget? I think that it's an accumulation of the fact that what's been leading up to this has not been particularly responsible. But like I say, they're doing the best they can with what they've got, and we're just going to have to get through this. I don't like to see debt exclusions of that level, because it means our property taxes are going to get higher, and it's going to be harder and harder for those of us who are working to stay here. It's easy to point fingers and say this could have been avoided, but we have what we have. So the fact that they were able to cobble this together as fast as they did, I think speaks well for them. But the fact that it got to the point where it had to be cobbled together in this fashion doesn't.
Dick, I have to just quickly jump in. I really mean it that I don't do numbers on the fly, but the problems with the town are accounting problems, not fiscal problems. And the problem with the budget is that we can't certify cash because there's problems with account payable and receivable. Those are different than fiscal problems. We don't have less cash. We don't have cash certified. Our tax revenue and our tax base, our bond rating are the same. What John says, John, with all due respect, I respect what you're saying, but it does not follow from our accounting problems that our taxes are going to go up. That's just not accurate, because the problems that we're having with our accounting function, with our accounts payable and our receivable, with accounts receivable and paying being entered wrong on a clerical level, that does not follow that our taxes are going up. I really can't let that comment go by. And I need to take a look at the numbers Ira's questioning. I simply don't have the numbers in front of me, so I can't responsibly make public statements about numbers. We don't have free cash certified, so we have to do certain maneuvers at town meeting that we then can undo when the cash is certified. And Charlie Sumner's will use more precise language to explain that in a town meeting. But what went wrong that the auditor's report laid out was essentially a problem in the accounts payable and receivable department that doesn't have to do with how much the town's fiscal position, and it's not an impact on taxes. It's not an impact on the town's overall fiscal position, and I think that really needs to be clarified.
Okay.
I wasn't trying to evade Ira's question. I just have too much respect for numbers to try to do them in my head and give some sort of, inaccurate answer. They need precise answers, but
Thank you,
again, it was
Justina.
an accounting problem, not a fiscal problem.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, you have another question from the chat?
We have a question directed to Mr. Wolf from Kathy, asking if he has read the full audit report and asking if he could speak briefly about how he would move forward to bring fiscal responsibility.
I've not read are you talking about the latest audit report?
I would assume.
All right, I'll assume that that's the case. No, I have not read the entire audit report. As far as moving ahead with fiscal responsibility, that gets to the selection of a town administrator who ultimately is responsible for that. The town administrator, as I pointed out earlier, answers to the select board, but the town administrator is responsible for coordinating the production of a budget. And so it really gets to that selection process. That's how I would address it.
Okay, does anyone? Helen, yes. Go right ahead.
The question was about how to select the town administrator.
No, the question was how to address the issue of fiscal responsibility, and that gets to the selection of the town administrator.
I think Jeff took them out of order. Jeff, you want to ask?
The next question is from Wayne Clow. How do the candidates think we should pursue the hiring of the next town administrator? By committee or outside placement firms?
Okay, and okay, Helen, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, okay, so I've been on a pre-screening committee. Pre-screening committees, if well selected and they're appointed by the select board, are excellent. I've also experienced consultants that are hired in, and they're not always as useful as they might be. What you do need on a pre-screening committee are people who have had experience hiring other people and people who have had experience as town administrators or working with town administrators over a period of time. And we have people who are available for that, given that it's a committee that has to work very intensely for a short time. But there is this issue, which is no matter how well they work, how many people apply. I've now experienced 3 different town administrators, 4 actually, that looked great on paper, interviewed great, and they were the best people who were available in the end, because these people are all applying to other places and you may or may not get them, even if you want them as a finalist. And then, of course, the reality is very different. And there's something else that has to do with the quality of the town administrator, which is the kind of support and attentiveness that isn't controlling, but is very aware, particularly during the first year. And that people who come into the job, which is a very, very big job, are able to be given a chance and given support, which includes feedback over a period of time. We've had a town administrator hired who left and was considered not to be so good, but he was the person that every single person, I think with one exception, when the staff interviewed this town administrator, remember I've been around for like 6 now or something, I lost count. Every member of the staff thought this person would be great, except for one, a lot of staff. And it wasn't so much at the end when that person left. So it's a
Thank
funny
you.
process, but using a consultant does not guarantee that it's going to go better. Thank you.
Thank you. Justina, you wanted to comment?
Well, I'd probably use both unless we had, I'm more concentrated right now on taking a step back and saying, okay, first of all, what went wrong that we had, like, what did we do wrong that we had to leave? And also, how great a town are we to work for? And what, like, who are we? And also, what are we looking for? And doing, you know, we have a great interim town administrator right now who knows a lot of people. He's really networked in, and we can breathe and do some soul searching, evaluate our corporate culture, and do we need a, you know, what do we need to make this all succeed? And I would probably do that before I worried about selection committee versus or pre-screening committee, whatever someone called it, versus selection committee. I think we need to go upstream from there and take a look. What do we need to do to make this work, to make this succeed?
Thank you. John, would you care to comment?
Yeah, I'm not sure I would want us to see us using an outside consultant. I think within the community, we have the required knowledge of the community and of the community's needs to form a viable selection committee or search committee. I think the important thing there is to follow their recommendations. I'm not entirely sure if that was done or not. Perhaps Helen or Justina could answer that certainly better than I could, as to whether this last time around, whether the recommendations of that committee were followed. My understanding is that the person who was not selected actually had the most support from that committee, but I could be wrong. So if I am, I'm waiting to stand corrected. And it looks like
Okay.
I might be. So.
Thank you. Jeff, is there another question?
Yes, there is. This comes from Lydia Vimonte, who's asking about how Wellfleet should expand internet access. She provides a definition where municipal broadband is broadband internet access owned by public entities. Services are often provided either fully or partially by local governments to residents within certain areas or jurisdictions.
Okay. Helen,
Oh, boy.
your hand was up.
Yeah, it was to answer another question, but never
Okay.
mind. That's a very good question and less in my area of expertise, which some of my areas of knowledge consist of knowing who to call up and get answers to questions like this. And, you know, in my resource pantry, if you will, are Mia Baumgarten, Tom Cole, and then some techie friends that I have that aren't related in any way to the town government. But I'm not sure that Wellfleet is ready to have an expanded IT management situation that would include services provided by the town to the extent that would really be useful. Right now, my understanding is, and again, I may be getting this wrong, at least I know that I'm qualifying it. We have formed this out to a contractor, as it were, and are paying that person. And not everybody is happy about it. And so this would be even more than that. And I'm not sure, we have to always think about what the town can manage properly, not just in terms of paying for something, but the oversight and the organization. Sometimes it works really well to delegate and sometimes it doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Justina?
You know, I don't have a well thought answer. I'm not going to embarrass myself by making something up.
Okay. John?
I would have to echo Justina's comment on that.
Thanks, John. You're
Can I make
gentleman.
Can I make a remark about that?
Sure.
We are all really tired of public service people or politicians pretending they know stuff they don't. We are really tired of it. So I love what we all just said. Thank you.
John was just pretending to make me look good.
Okay.
No,
Well,
credit where credit is due. Hey.
okay. I think we
Yeah,
should
one more
wrap this
question.
up because we haven't, Jeff, one last question?
One more question, asking John Wolf what his position is, where he stands on the Herring River estuary restoration.
Okay. And it's
as
just
he
for
understands,
John,
the
so-
dike is owned by the town and then owns the liability.
Yes. Here again, I'm going to channel Justina. Because this, for me to say that I am for it or against it would be a simplistic answer to an extremely complicated question. There are so many factors in here: environmental, liability, good science, bad science, the rights of abutters, and so on and so forth. I actually just, I've been spending the better part of my afternoon looking into that. And I also spent quite a bit of time last week trying to get questions answered and getting different perspectives, because there are a lot of different perspectives on this, and they're all important. And they all bear consideration, and they all, particularly the liability aspect of it, could seriously impact the town. And, you know, in the middle of this discussion we've been having about town finances, this is not something to be taken lightly. So yes, I would, I know it sounds like I'm dodging the question. I'm not. There is not an easy yes or no answer as to whether I support it.
Thank you. We do have one more contested election, and before everyone leaves, I would like to go on to the other election, which is the cemetery commissioners. Two people are running, Donna Richter and David Hager.
Rickman,
Donna Rickman, sorry.
Don Rickman, or Donna Rickman.
Donna Rickman, sorry. What did I get? Okay. Rickman and David Agar. Are either of you here? I see Donna. Would you like to lead off? And well, Donna happens to be at the top of my screen, so would you like to take 5 minutes and introduce yourself and explain your positions?
Good evening. I don't have any prepared remarks. I wasn't aware of this meeting until yesterday. My name is Donna Rickman. Somebody had mentioned Dawn. Dawn Rickman is my mother. She's right here. I have lived in Wellfleet. I grew up in Wellfleet, and I got married and moved away for 21 years. Then moved back in 2007, and I've been a resident ever since. I have a background in genealogy going back almost 30 years. And from that, it's kind of extended to interest in cemeteries. I am a volunteer for Find a Grave, which is a website where local volunteers take pictures of gravestones. And I've been doing that for about 8 years. And I've taken over 9,000 pictures of local gravestones and uploaded them to the site, and also done genealogy with some of the memorials on that website. I guess that's a little bit about me. I haven't, like I said, I have an interest in cemeteries, and I feel that my knowledge would be helpful to the dead residents of Wellfleet, at least.
Okay.
Don't look at me like that.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, please. Thank you. Dick, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. All right. First of all, I want to thank everybody who attended this Candidates Night Forum to hear from all of us who are running for positions that serve the town and the community of Wellfleet. I think it's great. I just want to mention a little bit about the Wellfleet Cemetery Commission and how it's set up. The Wellfleet Cemetery Commission has a 3-member board who serve 3-year terms, and they are re-elected on staggered basis. Generally speaking, the Cemetery Commission is charged with the development and maintenance of the 5 town cemeteries. And that includes things like perpetual care of the grounds and structures, clearing new sections of plots as the needs arise, sale of plots to the general public, and the oversight of the funds generated by these sales. We also coordinate the placement of corner markers and headstones. We provide oversight for the interment of the deceased, and also developing and maintaining working relationships with the town of Wellfleet departments, boards, and community groups. So that's generally what the Cemetery Commission is charged with. And I've been a cemetery commissioner since 2012. I'm now running for my 4th 3-year term. And I've really enjoyed working with the other cemetery commissioners as we coordinate all these services. I think we work really well as a team, and we've been very successful these past 3 years. And so I'd like to just mention some of the accomplishments that we as a cemetery commission and myself as a member of it have completed and that I'm very proud of over the past 3 years from 2018 through 2020. Each year over the past 3 years, and actually since 2012, we've held 2 volunteer cemetery cleanups, one in the spring, right before Memorial Day, and one in the fall, right after Labor Day. And we focus typically on Duck Creek Cemetery, Pleasant Hill Cemetery, and Oakdale Cemetery. And over the past 3 years, we've had participation with over 32 community members participating in these cleanups. In addition to community members who participate in these cleanups, we've also had an ongoing relationship with AmeriCorps of Cape Cod. And over the past 3 years, we've had over, how many is it? 32 staff members and 96 volunteer hours from AmeriCorps Cape Cod. So we've really had a great relationship with them. We've also worked with, as I mentioned, different departments with the town. DPW we work with on an ongoing basis, either to coordinate and schedule the mowing and upkeep of the cemeteries, as well as other climate and weather-related concerns or crises that we have in terms of down trees, things like that. Also, in 2019, we had a successful application with the CPC for $10,000 to stabilize any headstones that were in good condition. In addition to that, we established in 2019 a new section in Pleasant Hill Cemetery that will accommodate up to 300 burials. And so that really should last us into the next 50, 60, maybe even 100 years.
Okay,
And
thank you, David. We have a question. Jeff, do you want to read it?
Yes, so there was
For
one
each of
part,
you?
there was one part that was a follow-up to the question I asked
No, but
earlier.
let's do the cemetery question now.
Do the cemetery question first. Okay. This is from John Wolf, and it says, in recent years, there was a serious issue with the letting of a contract for gravestone maintenance and restoration, which by every account I've heard was a disaster and a waste of a considerable sum of town funds. Where does the responsibility for this lie? And what would you do to prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future?
Okay, Dawn, do you want to start with that?
Donna.
Donna, sorry. Donna, would you like to start?
Okay, let me just, oh, there I am. Let me just take a look at the question again. Prevent this kind of thing from happening again, I would say the contractor would need to be vetted and researched adequately and thoroughly to see if they know what they're doing, basically.
Okay, okay.
It should be put out to bid, and proper procurement for the vendor or contractor should be followed.
Thank you. David,
right. John, I would say that the responsibility lies directly with the Wellfleet Cemetery Commission. And I think over the 6+ years that we were involved with trying to restore and repair headstones, generally speaking, we've been very pleased with the results of the restorations and the remounting and stabilizing of headstones. John, I would encourage you, and I'd be happy to take a walk with you in the cemetery so we can look at the large number of headstones that we're very proud of. And in terms of procurement, we believe that we followed procurement procedures. We put out bids, and the reality is there are very few people who do it. And the person we chose, we felt presented themselves well. They showed a history of good work in Connecticut. And over the last 2 years, we are also disappointed in the results of a lot of the work. And that really has to do with the headstones that were remaining to be worked on probably should not have had any attempt to restore them because of the condition that they're in. And therefore, in 2019, we did decide to no longer repair any headstones, and any stabilization or remounting of headstones would only be of headstones that are in good condition. Thank you.
Jeff?
We have a question from Bonnie Robichaud asking Donna why she has never supported our cemetery cleanup day.
Oh, I've never not supported it. I haven't been there. I have cleaned many gravestones, probably over 70, 75. I support the Wellfleet cemeteries in other ways by documenting them photographically, genealogically.
And we have another question for you, Donna, from Helen Miranda Wilson, and she asks, she says, the commission has recently held a seminar type meeting about green burials. What is your take on green burials?
Green burials are quite interesting. It's how people buried people for millennia. I have participated in Zoom meetings regarding green burials, not just with the Wellfleet Cemetery Commission's Zoom meeting, but meetings with the AGS, which is the Association for Gravestone Studies. I'm currently part of their course right now. It's a 10-day course. And I think it's a thing that Wellfleet can do, but very carefully. It's definitely worth being explored further.
Okay, with that, I think I'd like to thank all the participants and the audience for their forbearance in our technical snafus, as well as the quality of the questions. So can we have a round of applause for all the candidates? And unmute yourselves for this, or put a reaction for a thumbs up.
Thank you, Jeff.
very much.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you,
a
Dick.
round of applause for Dick for taking the trouble to host this.
Yes, thank you, Dick.
Thank you very much.
And Dan Silverman.
Yes,
Can
thank
I
you,
just say
Dan.
one thing? The answer to Ira's question, or the particulars, you can see on our last select board packet, and I just sent it to Ira, what we were presented with last night, and it will be gone over once again at the FinCom meeting tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
And thank you, John, for being so gallant.
Oh.
Chivalry is not dead.
I hope not. All right, all. Have a great
Bye.
night. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. I'm going to end the meeting for everyone. Thank you, Dick.